This is the cartoonist who has carried on brilliantly since the death of Billy DeBeck, chiefly with the assistance of this odd little fellow from the hill. Snuffy Smith and his jug of corn squeezing. His patient mountain wife, Lousy. Barney Google, currently with the Navy. All the characters of Fred Lasswell, Jr., and keeping him very busy on the job.
This comic strip started in 1919 and has been published continuously, without interruption, 365 days a year for 70 years. And that's 2 or 3 strips. These are Sunday pages that were done 1960. This is 30 years ago. See, they're all in, the proofs used to come in color. But the comics, the comic pages we do now aren't quite as big as they used to be. Now, pardon me, there's just a little bit of space for the comics, and we do the best we can with the space we've got. And these are daily originals.
It's a lot.
Here's Snuffy out there with the hogs. Do you read Snuffy?
Yes, sir, I do.
Oh, you do? Well, I was going to say you have to leave if you didn't read Snuffy. Here's Snuffy's coming in. He says, "Me and the fellers are playing cards over here tonight, Ma." And she's on the floor laughing. She says, "Ha ha, then I won't have to tidy up." He's got a bunch of rowdy-dowdy friends. Now, this strip here appeared December the 29th, 1989. But I don't know if it'll show up on the camera or not, but this lettering is pasted down.
I can see it.
Can you see it? It's pasted down on there, and it is done on a computer. I designed the font and had a fellow translate it to a floppy, and now whenever I do my strips, I use a computer to write my copy. So then when I get it all written and everything, we spray the back of it with sticky stuff, put it down, cut it out, whap, bam. Don't have to hand letter anymore, which I did for 50 years.
My name is John Rose, and I'm a cartoonist. I draw the Snuffy Smith comic strip. Its actual official title is Barney Google and Snuffy Smith, which is syndicated around the world to hundreds of online and print subscribers by King Feature Syndicate. As far as the age of the strip actually turns 100 years old next year in 2019, and I'm the 3rd cartoonist to draw it. It was created by Billy DeBeck, and his assistant was Fred Lasswell. And when Billy DeBeck died, Fred Lasswell took it over from DeBeck, and then I actually worked for Fred Lasswell as his assistant starting in 1998. So when I worked for him for 3.5 years, and when Fred passed away in 2001, King Feature Syndicate offered me an audition to try out, and I auditioned, I think, along with a few other people, and I guess they liked my work the best, and so since 2001, I've been the cartoonist for the comic strip. I think the greatest appeal with the comic strip is probably the characters. I think the characters are ones that people enjoy seeing every day. They get a kick out of the characters. A lot of these characters were created before me, so I can't take credit for all the characters, but I think that's a secret really to any good comic strip, is just having a unique set of characters that people can relate to and enjoy reading every day. Well, I think I've been drawing as long as I can remember. My mom and dad say when I was a real little kid, real small, I asked my mom when we were traveling, I asked her if she would draw a man on a piece of paper. And she drew a stick figure and she handed it to me and I said, "That's not a man." And she said, "Well, draw your own." So from that point on, I think I've been drawing. So. With the Snuffy Smith comic strip, I work on all 6 daily comic strips at the same time. Once I have the ideas, then I would draw out in pencil each of the daily comics. Then I would ink them, scan them in the computer, and once I have them complete, then I'll move on and do a Sunday comic strip. Once I have the idea, then I'll do pencil sketches, pencil it out, then ink it, and then letter it, and then scan it into the computer, and then send a week's worth to the syndicate at a time. Try to send those every Sunday. I love drawing the Snuffy Smith comic strip. I hope to continue to do that as long as this hand will let me. And I love doing that. I love doing Snuffy Smith comic books as well. We've done 2 book collections, and we're working on a 3rd comic strip book collection. So who knows what will happen, but as long as I'm able to draw cartoons, I will.
All right, folks, recently I decided to do a strip featuring Mickey Mouse because Steamboat Willie went into public domain, and so I thought, oh, it'd be kind of fun to do a strip featuring Mickey, and I decided I'd feature Felix as the cat as well because they're so closely related, and I actually believe Felix was probably created before Mickey, and I think Felix was in cartoons before Mickey was invented. So that's why I decided to do both of these characters in the same strip. So I kind of had fun with this. This is kind of a neat throwback, and you know, it fits my style because I work obviously pen and ink on paper with metal nibs, and so I was like, oh, this will be fun. But it was actually, you know, more of a challenge than you might think at the beginning. As you saw, I did some tracings at the beginning there, and those were simply to get a feel for the shapes of these characters and sort of their dimensions and all that. I realized that Mickey and Felix are basically the same character. They're both, like I said, I think Mickey actually was copied off of Felix. And that's kind of what this strip is about. They're sort of fighting over bragging rights, and it's kind of, you know, kind of funny. But I'm actually inking this using my typical Browser & Co. number 513, and any India ink. I sometimes use a Browser & Co. 511, but the 511 and the 513 are going to get you this same type of really nice line, which is very flexible yet very sturdy at the same time. These nibs are great. They're very, very well designed, and they work just great. They got just the right amount of flex, and at the same time, the right amount of sturdiness. So you can kind of push down on them. They won't bend out of shape right away. If you notice, I'm holding this nib almost perpendicular to the paper, so I'm trying to get the edge on the paper. I'm not drawing with the nib flat. I'm drawing with the nib at an angle, and I do that to get different types of lines. You see, I turn it in my fingers, and now it's really almost vertical at this point. The edge is what's hitting the paper, not the tip so much, it's the edge. And that gives me those nice thicks and thins. I know how much I can press down on the pen. You see there? I started thin and I got thick towards the middle. I know how much I can press down on it to get these types of lines. So again, back to the tracings. The tracings taught me that, in fact, Mickey and Felix, even though they look very simple in terms of the shapes, you really need to make an effort to keep these shapes nice and round, which is what I'm trying to do. When I'm working on ice cubes, I'm a lot more loose with my lines, so I will typically go faster when I'm drawing, whereas here I'm being a little bit more deliberate and I'm being very careful with the weight of each line. So even though it looks like I'm going fast, this is sped up 2 times, 200%. So I'm actually going much slower than this in real life, but I decided to speed up because otherwise it would have gotten a little bit tedious. But so this is a little bit sped up, and you can see I'm really trying to keep my shapes rounded. I'm really trying to keep all the shapes and all the motion on the lines very fluid and rounded. So now I get to fill in the blacks. And I'm using this brush, which I made a mistake when I bought this brush. I don't like this brush. This is a Winsor & Newton, which is typically what I buy, and I do like the Winsor & Newton number 7s, Series 7 number 0s, which is what I typically use. But this brush is a particular design which is called the miniature format, which I had no idea even existed, and maybe it's a new thing they came out with. But when I went online to buy my Winsor & Newton Series 7 number 0, I didn't notice that it said miniature next to it. And so I guess this is a different type of brush. I've never seen this kind of brush. It's so small, it carries so little ink. I mean, the tip is the same size. The tip is a number 0. But the brush itself is so small, it carries so little ink, it's very tedious. You can't see here because I cut out all the times that I'm re-dipping the brush, but I'm having to dip this brush like every couple of seconds, because you can see there, it really just doesn't hold that much ink. So I really don't like that. I like my brush to have a lot of ink and I could just keep painting with it. So this miniature series is definitely a no-go for me. I won't buy them again. I don't like them. I don't understand why they even sell these. I'm not sure what they would be good for. I can't imagine what you'd paint with them. Maybe models, plastic models, or, hobby type stuff. But for me, it's not very useful. I used it on this strip. And, of course, they're very expensive. Winsor & Newton brushes are expensive. I mean, these are $20 brushes, so I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to use it. But I don't like it. And I'm kind of mad at myself for not having paid closer attention to the listing and bought these and not have returned them right away. And the reason I didn't return them right away is because I didn't notice it until I started inking with one. And I'm like, wow, what is this? And I had no idea these types of brushes existed. They're called Series 7, they're called number 0. Everything else is the same except that it's the miniature brush. I'm like, wow, that's very confusing. Anyway, so here I am going over some of these words with a thicker pen. This is a Speedball C4, which is a flat calligraphy type pen. This is a pen that you might use if you're doing Gothic letters. It's flat, and so it splays out more. And you can see I'm also holding it at an angle to get a thicker letter. And so I emphasize some words with a thicker pen. I always do my text and speech balloons first. I always ink my letters first because you want to lock that down before you start doing any other work on the page, or at least I do. That's the way I do it, and I think it serves a very good purpose in that you don't want to run out of space for your letters. And you can kind of tell if someone's done the letters after doing the drawing, because you'll see where, you know, they had to readjust everything. But I like to do my lettering first, and I'll typically do it with a blue pencil so I don't have to erase it, and then I'll come back with my nibs and I'll write in my text. And to do my emphasis words, like for example the word cat and the word mouse, I did those with my C4 speedball pen. Otherwise I use a just a normal Hunt, I can't remember what it's called, maybe a number 2 or something like that. Very stiff, fairly stiff pen. So here again, I'm using my Browse & Co nib and doing the outlines on Felix. And again, you can see I'm holding my pen really almost perpendicular in terms of the blade to the paper. I was leaving some negative space around the shapes because these characters, back in the 20s and 30s when these characters were designed, they were designed for cartoons. And they made the bodies completely black. That's why Felix and Mickey are both black, because I believe they were both copied off of each other. But the reason they're black is because in doing animation, these were made for animation, these characters. Having a black body filled with ink was a lot more forgiving. So you could move ahead, and if you made a mistake, which you'll see, I will make a mistake in a second here. If you make a mistake, it's okay. You can fudge it because the body shape is basically all filled in with black. And so if you make a mistake, well, you just clearly can fix it using more ink. And that's why all the early 1930s cartoon characters are basically black, because they're all filled with ink like this. Also, before they invented the animation cell, the see-through acrylic cell, they used to paint these characters on paper. And obviously it was shot on black and white film, so black ink on white paper was, you know, the best effect that you could get. And so that technique is why these guys are black, filled in black. What I'm trying to do is, as I'm filling it in, you can see sort of you lose some of the shapes. And so I try to leave a little white outline to delineate some of the shapes, but you can see when I fill in with the ink, sometimes I make a mistake, and you'll see here, I'll go over this area, and because I wasn't quite sure like what to do with that foot there, and I painted it, and then I wasn't happy with it, but I just left it. So, and that's why these characters are filled with black, because it's a lot more forgiving when you do something like that. So here, again, I'm outlining Mickey with my pen nib, keeping the shapes nice and round. You can see I turn my hand, and I turn the nib in my hand for different. See, this one's almost straight on flat, but when see here, I turned it a little bit more on an angle. So it depends which line I'm trying to get, and I'll turn my pen between my fingers to get a different type of line each time, depending on what angle I might need to get that particular line. So drawing Felix and Mickey was more of a challenge than I thought at first. You saw how I turned my pen there just to get a flatter line. You see the pen's really on an angle here, really on an angle here, and I turned it back. See, turned it back flat. They were more of a challenge than you might have thought at the beginning to draw. You got to keep these shapes very regular. They're drawn in this real sort of bouncy ball style, and that was again because of animation. It was easier to do stretch and pull on these bouncy looking type of characters, rubber ball kind of characters I'd call them, you know. And they're both the same dimensions. They're 3 heads tall, and they're all filled in with black, and so they're very similar. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to do both of them in the same comic strip. So basically, that's what I wanted to try to do, and I think it came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the result. It was neat to experiment with this old school style of drawing, and very endearing to me because obviously, you know, these characters are timeless, and this style is really, really great, and has quite a legacy, you know. This type of rounded, funny animal kind of style is very enduring. And I do use the same basics for drawing ice cubes, even though I'm a little bit more loose in my lines. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane here, and I hope I did these guys justice and didn't mess them up too bad. Yeah, I plan on doing more Felix and Friends strips in the future. This was the first one. I hope to do more old school cartoon characters making cameo appearances in ice cubes in the future. I hope you enjoyed it. And that's about it. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to go visit the website icecubescomics.com.
I'm going to draw Garfield happy here, okay? When he's happy, look at this. The mouth comes all the way up around the eyes. See that? And let's see, he's excited here too. And that is simply happy. He looks happy all over. All right? Now, let's do the opposite of this one, and let's do sad. Sometimes I draw the outline of the face, and then I draw the eyes. Now, sad takes this kind of an expression, okay? Look at that. Aww. And his mouth droops down like that. And everything kind of droops, even the ears. Look at this. The ears droop down. And then everything sags. Everything's sad from that point. So always remember this. This is a very important thing. All right? Now, let's draw him angry, and we're going to go the opposite direction with those eyes. When it's angry, they come down very sharply and up. Look in the mirror sometime. Your eyes will do this too. And then the mouth really curls down. All right? Look at that. That's angry. And on a cat, watch a cat who's getting ready to have a fight. The ears turn back. In fact, let's go ahead and take this another step and do them even angrier yet. Look at this. We can do sharp teeth. Look at that. Now, he's really upset and he's getting ready to fight. So let's do a variation off the happy. Let's say he got caught in the act of eating a piece of pie that he wasn't supposed to have, and John catches him, all right? This is sort of sheepish here. Now, he says big teeth right there. He's trying to look innocent, but he really is guilty. That's one of my favorite expressions. Garfield gets caught in the act a lot. That's what that looks like. All right. Now, let's do scared. When he's scared, again, the eyes are open, but look what happens to the pupils of the eyes. They get real small. They float right in the middle of the eyes, and the mouth gets real small, too. So, he just saw a ghost, or he just saw a very big dog. Not happy about that. Now, let's do the classic Garfield expression. Here's one where he's always thinking something naughty. He's got that real attitude in his expression. He'd like to be pushing Odie off the table or something. This is his wise guy expression. This is the one you've seen most often. Classic Garfield. To get everything moving in the same direction. As long as you think action and direction, you're going to be just fine, okay? Here's Garfield walking. So we get everything moving forward. He's looking forward. He's leaning forward. And everything's moving in the same direction. Look at this. We're going to take the body and move it out behind here. See, now like here is the center line of gravity, but everything's behind him and he's moving this way. So here he is with the arms swinging. It never hurts to go ahead and stand up and walk yourself and try to capture this kind of emotion. Okay, here he is, walking forward. Now, a couple of cartoon indications, okay? Here, we throw in some action lines, and that shows that he's moving forward. And also, that we do this shading underneath to show what area is right directly under his body. So this is Garfield walking. Another important concept to understand is also what we call squash and stretch. Now this is where you actually take the character out of proportion, but for some reason in cartooning it looks just fine. What we're going to do here is draw Garfield reaching for a piece of pie. Now, you know his arms are basically this length right here. Okay? Now on a squash and stretch, we'll take this far arm and we draw it real long because he's reaching for this piece of pie. There he goes. Now even though that arm is much longer than it should be, it looks okay in cartooning because he's reaching. In fact, let's do this. Let's go ahead and put him up on his toes. All right? That makes him even longer when he's reaching for a piece of pie. And again, we do the tail out here. So, and the shading underneath. There he is reaching for a piece of pie. Now, a real big piece of action. This is Garfield running. Now, you know Garfield's got to be excited, so we're going to make him with open eyes when he's running. In fact, we'll even do his mouth open here. Sometimes I work in a mirror when I'm working on some of these just to see what he's going to look like when he's running. Again, with all the motion, look how his ears go back in the wind. And again, you have to think about every piece of action. His fists are clenched, and his body goes way back like this. And his arm goes out in front, like that. And we get his legs up real high. Now, again, we're really exaggerating this running motion. But it's going to look very natural when it's in cartooning. Now, when a character is running, they're usually off the ground. So we're going to put the shading all the way underneath. Now, to give even a bigger feeling of motion here, we're going to give them action lines and maybe even one of these dust clouds on the back. And we can even do a dust cloud underneath when he stirs up dust when he's running. And another thing I like to do with Garfield, look at this, we'll bend the whiskers to get the action. And when a cat runs or a dog runs, little hairs come off the back. They're always shedding. And that gives even a bigger feeling of action. So he's really moving forward. He's really excited. There's a lot of energy in a drawing like this. Now let's go exactly the opposite direction. We're going to do Garfield totally without motion. But again, to me, this is a motion drawing. This is one of my favorites. This is Garfield sound asleep or totally bored. We're going to employ a little trick here called foreshortening. This is turning the head up so far that you don't even see the eyes. Got a big tummy here. Everything's laying flat, by the way, on this line right down here. So his arms are resting right beside him, and you've got the legs resting on the ground, big toes, like this. And this is Garfield resting. Now we get everything going along the floor line here, even the tail. And here we'll move the whiskers up here. Totally bored, really rested. And sometimes here, for an effect, we'll go ahead and do this little sound effect. Garfield, sound asleep. That's always fun. He's very funny in this position. Now, we're going to do some actions. I'm going to put some words with it here when we get done. One of my favorites is when Garfield gets hit in the face with a pie, okay? Here's the edge of a pie, and when Garfield gets hit, this pie goes like that. It really splatters, all right? Now, Garfield is back here somewhere. You'll have to trust me. Here are fingers. You know, see how his body goes this way? He's really getting hit hard with this pie here. All right. All right. This pie's coming in like this. All right. There's Garfield getting hit with a pie. And the sound effect we use with this one is splut. In fact, I like splut so well. We've even had splut weeks. Every day gets hit with a different kind of a pie. Now let's use a more subtle kind of a sound effect, okay? Here's one Garfield uses a lot too. So this is what he does right after a meal. Puts his hand over his mouth like this. I'm not going to give this one away. Just had a big meal. I have to tell you, Garfield is not very nice in this respect. But he goes, burp. Just like that. How many times does that happen to us? Okay, here's another fun one. This is one of Garfield's favorite things to do. This is not very nice. I get some mail occasionally about this because he's not very nice. He hates spiders. Here he is. His fists are clenched. He's really leaning forward. And he's got a newspaper like this. And a big action line, okay? And this is splat. Poor spider, look at here. Here are little tiny legs coming out there. The spider never fares very well when Garfield's around him with a newspaper. That's an easy sound effect. Okay, we're going to go to a little tougher sound effect now. This is what Garfield does absolutely best. First, we have to draw this great big mouth. Get it open just as much as we can, like this, okay? And then we're going to draw a whole blur of arms, like this, okay? Can you guess what he's doing yet? Watch this. I'm going to make you guess. There's his ears back here. Here is his food bowl. And he is eating. Now here, rather than making a lot of eating sounds, we use a lot of descriptive terms. And this really helps a lot. We use, let's see, gulp, smack. We can pick up burp, gobble, snarf, and anything you can think of that has anything to do with eating. Eat, that's always fun. And so these words are all real funny, but they help to describe this whole action of Garfield eating. So those are sound effects.
Hi, this is Dave Marshall for Art of the Comic Book, and today we're going to have a quick lesson on how to use the Ames lettering guide. It's a traditional tool for comic book lettering, certainly for American comics for the last 100 years or so, and internationally as well, just, you know, different sizes and different settings. So anyway, this is the guide, and all it is a round little device with a series of numbers that if you change the rotation in the wheel, the height actually gets bigger. If you do it like that, that's as tall as it can go. And if you do something crazy like this, then they're exactly horizontal. And if you look at these three columns here, these are ratios. So the one in the middle is even spaced. The one on the right, or I guess the top if you rotate it this way, sure, why not? So the one on the top is 3/5. The one in the middle is even spaced. And the one on the bottom is 2/3. That's the ratio we're going to be using for this class. And on the bottom here is a little tick mark, and there are some size registration numbers. So for our purposes, what you want to do is put it between the 3 and the 4, kind of in the middle. I mean, between the numbers, there's really not a lot of precision involved. So there you go. We're going to use 2/3, and our mark is between the 4 and the 3. So here's a blank piece of paper. You can see on top there's some lettering there already. I'm just going to start a new row of guides. So I've got my main line, which is kind of a fancy T-square, and I'm just going to draw some lines. So I'll start with the very top row. This is just a spacer, so it's top, bottom, space, top, bottom, space, top, bottom. Now in the middle is an area for X heights. That's like lowercase letters. We're not going to be doing that for comic books, certainly not for the first assignment. So anyway, so place a pencil in the very top hole, and then just drag either left to right or right to left, whatever your preference is. So 1, 2, actually that's the second row, third row top, third row bottom. So now we've got three rows ready for us to work on. And if we want to do more rows, that's when we slide down, put the margin right where you've drawn your last line, margin top, and then start again at row top. So row, bottom, row, bottom, row, bottom. And I'll do one more just because I'm sort of feeling it. So row, bottom, row top, row bottom, row top, row bottom. And the beautiful thing is that the 2/3, 3.5 scale, that's just for dialogue that goes in word balloons. That's kind of your default. You can experiment with different heights for different applications. Say you want to do, well, maybe a sound effect was a little too like wild to be in a single row, but display lettering like headlines, shouty bits. Then, well, for a shouty bit, you can always make it some combination. Shout, Hey. You are yelling. Okay, so you can do that, and if your lettering is bigger than normal, then you can experiment with different nibs. But we'll get to that in another demo. So for right now, you've seen everything you need to know about how to work the Ames lettering guide. Thank you very much for your time. See you next time.
Welcome to Stave Draws. I'm Stave, Dutch illustrator and animator. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can ink in Procreate with the Apple Pencil on the iPad Pro. So let's get to it. I'm now going to ink one of my favorite comics, and that's Pogo. Pogo was drawn by Walt Kelly, a cartoonist from the 40s. So I took this Sunday page, and it's from 1968. Why I use a Sunday is because the inks on the Pogo pages are just very versatile. So I imported the Sunday page into Procreate and set it to like 20%, so I could ink over it in a different layer. So I created a new layer and I did all my inks in that. At first I just wanted to do one panel, to see how it works and how it feels, but I really got the swing of it and decided to do the entire Sunday page. So here's a detail of me working in Procreate with the Apple Pencil. I just left the brush at 100% and did all the thick and thin lines by just using pressure. And this is a great brush I downloaded from the Procreate site, because you can make your own brushes, and this was done by one of the users of Procreate. And as you can see, you can do a variety of lines and do thick and thin lines with it. To me, it is the best experience doing digital inking on a screen. I have been inking with a Wacom Cintiq from the beginning, and I used Flash, Photoshop, Manga Studio to do my inks in, and inking with the Apple Pencil doesn't compare to Wacom at all, because the Apple Pencil really responds well and just does what you want it to do. Because with inking you always need good control over your line work and doing thick and thin lines, and the pressure sensitivity is just amazing. And I'm now inking Pogo, and as you can see, the Apple Pencil really responds well, and there are no specs on the Apple Pencil what the pressure sensitivity is, but from my experience it is much better than doing your inks on a Wacom Cintiq. And I'm working on a Wacom Cintiq 24-inch HD Touch, which is the best drawing tablet you can work on. But with the Apple Pencil you have much more control over your line work. I did not adjust the settings because, as far as I know, you cannot adjust the smoothness of your Apple Pencil. It's just the way you use it. You can apply different effects with using tilt and your pressure sensitivity. And I didn't use tilt. I just used my pressure sensitivity to get the thick and thin lines. I inked it with the brush I downloaded from the Procreate site, and I'll leave a link in the description box down below to that brush, because you can create your own brushes and share them through Dropbox, and you can import the brushes with Dropbox into Procreate. The file size of my Procreate file is 7000 pixels by 5000 pixels at a resolution of 132 dpi. Here I'll just show you the details of the inks. So my conclusion is that you really can do your comics or ink in Procreate with the Apple Pencil. And from now on, I'm just going to do my comic work in Procreate with the Apple Pencil.
This is Curtis Wilkins. Curtis is an 11-year-old African-American youngster growing up in the inner city. Nice kid, spunky, mischievous. Curtis is me when I was 11 years old. My name is Ray Billingsley, and I'm the creator of a comic strip called Curtis. Curtis was born on June 26, 1986. At 3:30 in the morning. I was having sort of a fretful sleep, and this little character kept jumping in my mind. Without turning on the light, I drew this character down in the dark. When I woke the next morning, there was Curtis. His hat, his attitude, everything. Curtis had been born. The playground is a great place to find stories. It's so full of kids, and my strip is about kids. I can go down there, watch the kids play, and listen to what they talk about. This way I know what's still current. I like to watch people. I like to see how they move, see how they react. All these things are helpful in doing my own comic strip. When I first start drawing the strip, I like to use a pencil. I pencil first so that all mistakes, all placement and everything can be done in such a way that I could change it easily. I thought it was important that Curtis's appearance, his features, really represent the average Black American. He's got the broad nose, he's got big hands, big feet, he's got broad lips, all of which he's very proud to have. Curtis is my best friend. He's always around. He always does what I tell him to. And we get along better than brothers. After I pencil in the characters and situations they're involved in, I like to go directly to inking. The inking solidifies the characters. I like to use a calligraphy pen because it gives my line freedom. I can go from thick to thin. It gives texture. It gives the character roundness. It's great with expressions. If you notice, my hand keeps going back to the ink bottle. This type of pen, I must repeatedly dip into the ink bottle because the ink runs dry. It's fun to use. Look how smooth that comes out. That's cool. This is my favorite part. Coloring. Giving dimension to your otherwise flat characters. best part for me is seeing Curtis printed in my local newspaper.
All right. Same here, all right?
There's no greater job in this world than being a cartoonist and getting a chance to have people share your dreams with you.
All right, so the sketching phase is actually the fun phase for me. So what I do is I start with an idea in my book, and you can see here it's pig tattoo. These are all just the ideas I've come up with in the morning, just like brainstorming. I do these little doodly things, and so you can see here this is like the two little pigs and the idea I had. So that's where I start, figure out where the word balloon is going to go. Because when you do a sketch, the important part is getting the main elements in there so that they're seen, and so that the reader's eye goes to where I want the reader's eye to go. It's more just sort of laying out like the locale and the location and what's kind of going on. But the important part, obviously, is going to be a couple of talking pigs, because what could be more important than a couple of talking pigs, right? So here is a cleaned up sketch, doing a little racing and making sure that I get it how I want it. Had to move the pig over to the left a little bit, and decided I want the pig's heads to be a little bigger. Just, I don't know why, it's funnier to me. This is the part where it's, all I can do is ruin it. That's how I think of it. Because my favorite part of doing this is coming up with the ideas. And then the sketching part I think is actually really enjoyable. But the inking part is just sort of like, I've already done it, and now I'm doing it again. But it looks a lot better when it's in ink than it does in pencil. So I use a technical pen, and once you establish a look, it's very important, especially for a single panel cartoonist. It's very important that you have your own look, because when people open the paper, they want to be able to recognize it without having to figure out whose drawing they're looking at. When you open up and when you read Garfield, you don't think, oh, that's a drawing style, so it must be Garfield. You recognize Garfield. So with me, I don't have that. Mike Peters he's Pulitzer Prize winning political cartoonist, and he was a hero of mine cartooning wise. And so I talked to him. That was the first thing he said to me was his best piece of advice was to make yourself laugh first, because you can't figure out how to make everybody else laugh. It's so subjective that you drive yourself nuts trying to figure out like what, I'm gonna draw a cartoon that's gonna make a 75-year-old woman laugh. I'm gonna draw a cartoon that makes a 22-year-old guy laugh. It's like everybody has different life experiences, so you just hope that like whatever your sense of humor is, that it'll be shared by enough people. But it won't be shared by everybody, obviously. Hopefully somebody.
Darling, when do you want to start the Paul Newman?
What?
When do you want to start the Paul Newman drawing?
Anytime.
Well, I think Susan is ready for you.
Oh, really? Oh, you're going to shoot the Newman thing today?
You're going to start today, sure.
Okay. Don't ask me what I'm doing here. I don't have the vaguest idea.
Would you consider stopping and continuing tomorrow? Al? Would you no.
Well,
All right?
all right.
Very nice, darling.
How does it look?
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Maybe you can finish tomorrow, darling, okay?
Yeah, okay.
We've got a date tonight.
Stop whenever you say.
Stop. Stop. You've got to get dressed for dinner, Al.
It's now 5 after 6. All right, call it a day.